Hi everyone, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of September 2nd, 2019. So the general weekly trends are basically, there are two major trends that have been going on for some months and will continue into, I guess, at least several weeks, and one of them will be continuing into 2020. So specifically, the really slow unfolding trend has to do with the conjunction between Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, and that is going to continue into 2020 and will coincide with major geopolitical changes, increase in earthquake, volcanic eruptions, and maybe some shuffling as far as who is in power. So maybe some old leaders may be removed from power and or literally borders redrawn, countries separating, unions breaking down, or new partnerships being entered for sort of many years to come. And some old, like I said, established leaders may be moved sort of aside, so to speak, or may, pass or just resign, etc. And this week, this influence is going to be felt somewhat, but in September specifically, it will be felt even stronger. And I guess this week it will be specifically strong for September 2nd and 8th, and then the entire month of September may experience increased, I guess, influence, and particularly the dates between 19th and 23rd of September, and then the 27th through the 28th of September. Another influence that will be ongoing and will especially manifest this year in September, and that is something that is basically a third, I guess, pass of this transit, that is the square between Neptune and Jupiter, and that's between Pisces and Sagittarius, and that has been going on since about April of this year, and another hit was around June, and now this is like the last final hit, which typically is either the strongest or coincides with some sort of a resolution or peak activity in that area. And so this kind of a square would coincide with focus on sort of issues related to oil, gas, anything to do with like ocean, navy, water, beverages, movies, music, religious places of some sorts, chemicals, poisons, pharmaceuticals, drugs, and things of that nature, places of seclusion. So it could be, monasteries and or say prisons, healthcare, especially for people who are elderly or need to be, in secluded areas somehow. So this whole month, we will see strong intensification of these activities, and because of the square between these two planets, we may expect problems in those areas. And particularly this week, we will have actually Mars kind of adding to this aspect by opposing Neptune shortly here, and it will form what's called a T-square. So we'll have like two squares going on basically and an opposition, and so that adds to that whole stress. And basically what we can expect is, like I said, problems with all the areas that I just listed, so such as the ships may not be able to go through, shipments are delayed, or there's a spill, so the literally vehicles or like ships cannot travel, or there's some immigration problems or issues concerning immigration. Maybe it's illegal immigrants, or there's some other problems along those lines. Maybe laws are passed such that certain people cannot move, or certain shipments can't go through, or there's, like I said, this imbalance of maybe literally people are accumulated, or people or commodities are accumulated somewhere, and there's overstock, or people are waiting in the group but they can't go through, or there's ships sitting in some part, in an area, and they can't go through a body of water because, again, there are legal problems, or there's some international conflicts, or literally there's pollution and things just can't go through temporarily. And another thing, because Mars is joining this particular square, Mars has to do with things like fires, and we just had this news, I guess, from California, where there was a fire on the boat, and unfortunately many people have perished. So other things that Mars has to do with are like infectious diseases, again, pollution, things that are sort of unsanitary, but also fighting, arguments, literally fires, explosions, and or aggression of some sort, attacks. So we can potentially expect things in the whole month of September, including this week. News about maybe attacks on a ship, like a pirate attacks a ship or something like that, or explosion in a ship, or maybe fire on an oil rig, or just fighting over oil, or fighting over, who can ship goods from one location to another. So that is going to intensify this week. Let's see. And of course, in the US, for example, it's a season of hurricanes, so we can expect maybe intensification, which we already have, of the activities where maybe there's too much heat, so the hurricanes can be more stronger than usual. And particularly, I expect that we may hear, again, the entire month about some disruptions that may affect oil industry and ultimately bring the oil prices up. Let's see, so another influence this week that is similar to what was happening last week, and I guess it continues, is a focus on healthcare, maybe animal welfare, I don't know, problems with animals, such as, again, like some diseases, maybe swine flu or something like that. So all that may continue intensifying. And also we may hear more about like teachers, students. I have read somewhere and it said that basically because of tariffs that US imposed on China, and those tariffs, I guess, the goods rather included some school supplies like pens and some other things like that, that those may eventually experience a price hike that is not necessarily ideal for, again, students and teachers and teaching. But other areas include, again, just like I said, just services, governmental services that are provided, like nurses, police, any sort of supportive kind of activities. Those may experience some changes. I'm not sure it would be either something like along the lines of maybe the strikes, where people don't want to show up to work, demand higher pay, or they're unhappy with something, or they're affected somehow as a group, and or there may be increased news about like governmental contracts or some laws, I guess, that specifically impact those particular either businesses or those populations. So maybe contract that has to do with healthcare, or companies that provide healthcare insurance may be somehow involved or something like that, or more than usual. Let's see. So other ongoing influences we have for China, and that has been going on for, I guess, months, will continue for some months, and that has to do with increased probability of news that maybe there are some earthquakes or some disasters, problems with oil, navy, pharmaceuticals, pollution, secrets, or maybe necessarily problems, but having to address those issues, and or dealing sort of with international partners, and trying to improve or increase, I guess, influence in the areas of long distance transportation and expanding internationally. And so that is just something that, again, is a topic that, I guess, where China is currently experiencing some changes and major transformation that only happens like once in, I don't know, maybe like decades. And so it's a slow unfolding influence. This particular week, the peak days of that influence are September 7 and 8. But again, that's more of a background influence. And then there are two sets of influences that sort of span from about August 19th through November 5. And they're similar for both US and China, because there's some not similarities, but other certain points in their natal charts that both countries have, in the same location. So certain things are triggered at the same time for them. So in particular, there is increased focus, and again, through November 5, but this week and about September 16, 18, 17, for both countries, where there's increased focus on like partnerships, maybe some conflicts with partnerships, some sort of a power struggles. And for US, specifically, increased focus on like leadership, country's status in the world, kind of being, a powerful country, as well as issues that relate to banks, finance, rates, stocks, currencies, etc. And or there may also be increased kind of probability of announcements that relate to like judges, lawyers, immigrations, laws in general. I guess tariffs, international sort of laws fall under the same umbrella, and or long distance travel and shipments. And that will intensify for US. Like I said, this month, even September, but also especially on October 2nd, we may experience, and we may have some sort of important announcement that relates specifically to US leaders. And for China, as I said, about September 17, 18, this month, where this influence is important as far as focus on partners, partnerships, maybe some conflicts, some power plays. But in addition to that, for China, the focus may be on kind of making deals under pressure, but also deals that would involve either cutting something, cutting losses, cutting the number of partners, cutting the number of areas in which to sort of, or trimming down, I guess, the number of areas and reducing the scope. So focusing more intensely on fewer areas, fewer partnerships, and or just like letting certain things go and letting certain things die off just because they're no longer useful and or they are not sustainable. Similarly, maybe is a time where China may focus on some either new infrastructure projects or fixing old infrastructure that is perhaps again falling apart before it does, so under some earthquake, etc. Addressing water erosion perhaps, or some problem that's over body of water. So there will be kind of a little bit more intense things that need to be taken care of, and those will come up for China potentially in this period, like I said, through November 5th. And there's also probability for China specifically that these things either will be hidden or they occur in such a way that are hard to diagnose, like I said, this water pollution, and you're not sure what the source is. Or maybe the activities that are being done will be done in some sort of a secretive way, literally underground in some mines, underground locations, or in a secretive, if not illegal way. And again, it could be done by China or to China. So now moving on to the exact dates. September 2nd was the holiday in the US. Markets were closed. I did say in my previous week's prediction that both September 2nd and 3rd, Monday, Tuesday, I was expecting to be intense days where markets will generally would be going down. And so Tuesday specifically, I said, may experience a large down move, and there will be increased focus on things like oil, water, navy, shipments over water, long distance sort of transportation, especially over water. And let's see. Then also on Tuesday, September 2nd, September 3rd, there may be increased focus on, as I mentioned already, healthcare, like teachers and young people potentially, and that may involve either some dangerous activities, some risky activities, or some protests, like striking or protesting against something, or vice versa. It may involve something like somebody who is either in the media, social media, or a journalist, or works in the communication or transportation industry, and they either are well known and they're experiencing some problems with their health, or they're somehow in dangerous circumstances, such as they're in an accident, or maybe they themselves choose to kind of participate in something that's considered risky and kind of almost risk their life. And or there may be some news about like increased protests, say pro animals, to support animal welfare, or against some drug. And or there may be increased news again about some athlete, and that person again either is their outspoken speech, or maybe they're somebody who is being aggressed against, and somebody is kind of being aggressive towards that, or that athlete who's maybe young and also is known for also being some sort of a social media celebrity is acting more rashly than usual, and like I said, they're saying some things that they shouldn't, or things are being directed towards them. So again, this may involve athletes, teachers, students, and or people who say work in healthcare or with animals, or it could be related to the topic of that, either aggression or protest, has to do with, again, animals, rights of athletes or young people. So sort of a mixture of both. Let's see. And the market on Tuesday, like I said, prediction is that it would go down. I actually am recording this on Tuesday afternoon, so the market has gone down. I also said and I have a blog where I usually put all of this out in written form at tolstunka.com, and I did mention there already that pre-open on Tuesday there might be some increased focus on currencies, especially cryptocurrencies. I haven't seen much on cryptocurrencies specifically, but I have seen something along the lines of the I guess pound was reaching like a 34-year low, specifically on Tuesday. And so the reversal from this down move on Tuesday, I think, will come most likely either the following day, so on Wednesday afternoon, and or I guess on Thursday. So also Tuesday and Wednesday are days when we may hear more news about like weapons, military, either military contracts or sales, as well as, like I said, sports, athletes, fires, explosions, accidents, etc. So again, this has to do with Mars activity being strong. And this may be combined with either windy conditions, so maybe, or something that's flying. So maybe if it's military and or some sort of weapons that are usually the weapons that are flying or transported through the air somehow. And or maybe if there's a fire, they're started by the wind, or wind makes the fires worse. Or because again, hot weather, I guess like with hurricane, there's hot weather. And so it results in kind of increased, I guess, speeds of the wind. And that is September 3rd through 4th. That's the beneficial conditions for that. So there may also be news something along the lines of like problems or issues for communication transportation companies. So maybe like a accident, like I said, fire, or maybe there's a fire, not fire, but accident at the fireworks, or some sort of a significant contract is signed for, like a governmental contract for cars or airplanes, any sort of flying, drones, weapons that again deliver through the air, or perhaps there's an attack on either verbal or an actual attack on like a prominent athlete or a journalist. And there also may be generally increased news about like prominent leaders, especially people who are like macho, either males or just macho kind of acting, and like a politician, athlete, journalist or media celebrity. People who are known for their speech or writing, basically communicating, being sort of well known for that. And this person may either be, like I said, the object of, or the subject rather, of the verbal aggression or even actual aggression, or be in an accident, or their health is a concern, or they're doing something risky, or they themselves say things that are too like rash or risky or aggressive or kind of rash, and or there may be some sort of associated either altercation, shooting, fire, accident, or threatening situation. And that may involve, like I said, somebody who's either an athlete, journalist, media person, or just a prominent and a politician, somebody who basically is known for their talking, and or like a driver or somebody who's in the transportation communication industry somehow. So let's see, also on the 3rd and 4th, like I said, those are like strong kind of days with a lot of events. There will also be increased focus on the value of oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, beverages, some certain movies and music perhaps as well, healthcare companies. And here their value may be somewhat kind of, I was thinking that it might go up actually because of some confusion and things may not be clear. Although I did see that the oil, I think, went down today actually, because I guess there's some concerns about the economy, whether it's doing well or not. But basically my prediction, again, as it stands, that eventually it will go up, and most likely, up in either by mid-September or in September in general. But these 2 days, specifically September 3rd and 4th, there might be increased and some sort of confusion as to basically what should be next, or what is the legal status of something, like maybe some, drug or something like that, or international tensions, but again, with unclear outcome, and or there's some sort of imbalance when there is some stock is accumulated, but it can't be moved because supplies cannot be shipped, or some sort of a over-evaluation where something is hyped up to more than it's worth. So I think still, like I said, oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, all of those, there's still maybe news about these sort of either businesses or related products going up based on this confusion and kind of expectation of things being better than they are. Let's see. So, right, so then next we can move on to September 4th, Wednesday. I think actually there's a slight probability that the market will go up, and I think it will be more likely happen by the afternoon, where potentially the reversal may occur from the down move on Tuesday, and or the up move will come on Thursday, the 5th of September. And also for Wednesday and Thursday, September 4th and 5th, yet again, there may be strong influence, sort of strong focus on like oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, beverages, religion, healthcare, and so forth. And at this point, we may hear some news about the important negotiations, agreements, sales, maybe there's some acquisition perhaps, or some sort of a transportation is able to go through, or maybe there's a problem with transportation, or there's legal action that needs to be taken, or there's a law passed that affects those areas, and or there's some intensification of international negotiations related to the areas above. So it will be something along the lines of like maybe negotiations of, acquisition, like I said, of one company by another, or sales, or can it be shipped? Maybe there's some international laws that prohibit from the shipment from occurring, and or something from being distributed. Maybe it's a movie, some copyright claim. So those issues can intensify specifically on the 4th and 5th of September. Then September 4th through the 7th, so through the end of the week, there may be increased sort of negative news or confusing news about the communication and transportation businesses. This will involve like cars, newspapers, sort of social media, these search engines, etc. And there may be, again, problems with shipments due to weather, international tensions, or legal issues, or problems with laws. Again, that could be related to like tariffs, or maybe some business is accused of deceptive or even illegal practices, or maybe there's some problem with public perception where, again, somebody, say, a prominent speaker who was being perceived as like virtuous, like religious, even high-minded, the person is being accused of being a liar or even having committed some abuse. And similarly, some entities that are related to, again, to these areas like religion, water, navy, music, or movies, and by entities I mean a company or an individual, maybe in the news, specifically as somebody may accuse them of, like I said, hiding the truth, not revealing all the facts, not following the laws, or omitting some information. And also this week has some additional hits to China horoscope. So in particularly for Wednesday, in the pre-open in the early morning hours, I guess in New York time, there may be some focus on the country's either wealth or earnings, profits, especially from the foreign contracts or from sort of related to international sources, laws, and shipments. So there may be some questions on that. And on the 4th and 5th of September for China, again, there might be increased focus on partnerships, negotiations, and contracts. And at that point on the September 4th, it may start with just kind of a news about some secretive negotiations or plans, like to limit, like I said earlier, the number of partners, reduce the number of items covered by the contract, like reduce the scope of something, plans to impose stricter controls over the agreements themselves, so something along the lines of like imposing governmental more stringent controls or cutting some losses or reducing something, or delaying perhaps as well negotiations. Then on the 5th, on Thursday, the focus may shift to actually clarifying things, so certain things may become clear, like what are the exact agreement points, what are the controls, what are the limits. So those things may be clarified and made, more specific. And then around September 6th through 8th, we may hear about some actions taken to either finalize the agreement, or if agreement is finalized on, say, the 5th, then to execute the agreement or enact some response, such as, impose some retaliatory tariffs. So basically for China, again, September 4th, I would say, through the 8th will be definitely busy, intense time, and they will be reviewing some agreements, imposing some controls, or trying to reduce something, or maybe imposing some delays, and then by like 6th through 8th, actually doing something, forcing through some actions, again, either to implement the agreement, finalize the agreement, or perhaps to counteract something that they feel is being, imposed on them. So for 5th of September, Thursday, I think the market will go up. Then September 6th, Friday, I think there's a strong probability of it actually dropping again. And it looks like potentially against another stressful day. So quick heads up for next week, because next week has even more kind of a precise aspects. Like I said, the Mars is joining that square between Jupiter and Neptune, which will continue and even kind of promote this focus on water, excessive water, floods, problems with basically anything to do with water or laws, legal contracts, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, chemical weapons, maybe infectious diseases, especially related to like animals, maritime accidents, especially involving explosions, chemical attacks, diseases, poisonings, problems with shipments over water, traveling over water. So maybe like a cruise ship is stuck, there's some flu on a cruise ship or something and people are sick. Or maybe, like I said, there's a pirate attack, or Another major hurricane prevents things from being shipped, especially might be affecting areas that, produce oil or, maybe basically either transport oil or have something to do with oil or gas or pharmaceuticals and chemicals, and increase of international tensions potentially, again, especially over oil, etc., and or even chemicals, and increased wet weather, but also problems potentially. So basically all of those kind of Neptunian areas. And in September, like I said, the strongest dates I would say to expect will be for the following week will be 19th through the 23rd, and even more so on the 27th through the 28th. There might be even stronger kind of like large-scale disasters that again may involve bad weather, too much water, etc., and may even involve earthquake at the same time. And for the US, next week may see increased focus also on oil, navy, pharmaceuticals, wet weather, but also banks, real estate, food safety, farming, homeland security, leaders and power status on the world. And to quickly wrap this up, for not this coming week of September 2nd, but the week of September 9th, I think that Monday we'll see a down move, Tuesday and Wednesday we'll see up moves, and then September 12th through 13th, which are Thursday and Friday, we'll see strong down moves. And from about Tuesday through Friday, September 10th through 13th, the moves will be pretty large. So regardless of the direction, the volatility will be truly high. And so there may be either really, really large drops, or it will be kind of up and down throughout the day, but it will likely be a very strong influence and something to be prepared for. So I think that's about it for me, and I'm gonna wish you all have a great week, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.